Phil Cross here. Esophageal cancer is what you search probably. I'm going to speak to you. I'm on my way to Huesca. I'm in Spain at the moment, on my way to Huesca, and I'm sort of started the journey now. I'm heading east towards the Pyrenees, and I'll be there, and then along the Pyrenees on the Spanish side for another night, and then I'll be going over into France, and generally heading back through France towards Belgium to meet some friends over the bank holiday weekend there. So yeah, I'm going to. I touched upon it when I was talking about PTSD with the cancer thing. I touched upon the copper who's up north, and forgive me, fella. You know, I can't remember what your name is. You know, if you happen to be watching this, I can't remember what your name is, and I apologise for that. But this lad got sacked because he swore at somebody who was wielding a knife, and I think it would probably been along the lines of put the fucking knife down. Do you know? I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but I imagine that's how it went, because what happens is when you're in a stressful situation, what you've got to remember is coppers, they're the ones that you expect to and are very happy to run towards the danger. You're running away from it, but the old bill are the ones that are running towards it, and the ones that you're expecting to deal with it. So, are you holding there, mate? Yep. So you got to cut them a little bit of slack, yeah. And when we use terms like I spoke to them in a vernacular that I thought they would understand. What that actually means is, at that point, that moment in time, things needed to be said to make them understand I was fucking serious in what I'm telling them, okay? Because I am the point of authority, if you like, and I'm here to tell you that what you're doing is illegal and you need to fucking desist, otherwise it's going to end badly for you. And we need to try and tell them in terms of that. So if shouting at somebody wielding a knife, put the fucking knife down, makes them put the knife down before I get my fucking stick out and hit them, or before they get tasered, then where's the harm in that? We've got different levels of force, haven't we? And our voice surely has to be the barest minimum of force. Using a bad language is just upping the force of the voice, isn't it? Surely. What the fuck did you sack him for? I've got no idea. So I could have lost my job myself for essentially swearing at somebody, but I wrote it down. Like I said to you before, I wrote it down, and I'll give you this story. And if the gentleman that is involved in this, I'm not going to use names, to be honest with you, I couldn't remember his fucking name, you put a gun to my head, but if you recognise yourself, own it, you fucking arse, because I still to this day think you're a complete cunt, and I could have lost my job but for me playing it straight, if you like. So I was driving the RT car, that's the big car on Borough in West End Central. It was night duty. I was with a colleague called Stuart, and we'd just come off of Piccadilly Circus and we were going along Shaftesbury Avenue. And as you go along Shaftesbury Avenue, you come to Rupert Street, which is left and right of you, but it's you can't turn right into Rupert Street or left into Rupert Street. Rupert Street is one way in sort of both directions towards Shaftesbury Avenue, but it's controlled by traffic lights. So as we were coming up towards the Rupert Street traffic lights, the lights changed. Now what you've got to remember is Soho, it was about 1:30 in the morning, I think, 1:45 in the morning, something like that. Soho at that time of day is just as busy as it is in the middle of the fucking day. It is just 24 hours of activity. So we pulled up at the traffic lights, and there was a taxi coming from my right, so turning right into Shaftesbury Avenue. And as he was turning right, he got flagged down by a guy who was in company of 2 women, and they'd all had a little drink. But the cab driver stopped halfway through the turn. So essentially, while he was waiting for his fare to get on, the lights changed, which meant now it was my turn to go. But he was still in the middle of the road, blocking the street with the back door open. One of the 2 girls had got in, the other one was thinking about how to negotiate the step, and the guy was sort of behind her. But what happens then is, because the lights are green, you've got a queue of traffic behind you going back to Piccadilly Circus, and they're all fucking standing on their horns, aren't they? So I've leant out the window of my car and shouted to the cabbie, "Bit of a silly place to stop there, cabbie, yeah?" He waved at me. The guy that was getting in the back of the cab, having had a couple of sherbets, decided it was a good time to shall we say, open negotiations. and basically turned around and said, what's your problem? Blah, fucking blah, blah. And do you know what? I'm not having that. I ain't having that. So I got out of my car. I went up to him and I said, get in the fucking taxi, otherwise your night ends right now. And he said, well, you can't tell me what to do. He said, you've just fucking you've got to have a little bit of patience and whatever. I said, mate, get in the fucking taxi, otherwise you're going to get nicked. Drunk and disorderly was my thought on that. So he did. He got in the taxi. I walked back to my car. Taxi driver's pulled off. Job's a good one. The taxi then gets held at the next set of traffic lights, which is the junction with Wardour Street to the left. I'm behind the taxi. Matey boy is looking out the fucking back window, writing down the registration of my car. I'm just pausing here because I've got a roundabout coming up and I need to know where I'm going. Oh, it's I'm going around to the left. Okay. So yeah, he's taking down the registration of my car. I've managed to wave at him and get his attention, and basically pointed at my shoulder, asking if he wanted my shoulder number, which he did, which I basically gave it to him using my fingers. Obviously, he couldn't hear me if I told him. Suffice to say, one of the numbers on my shoulder was a 1, and I'll leave you to work that out for yourself. So yeah, he's obviously written that down as well. And this was the point where I made what is to this day the single most important decision I ever made as a police officer in relation to keeping my job. I asked Stuart, my operator, to write down the taxi's registration and the taxi's plate number of his licence, which he did. We then went round the corner, picked up a cup of coffee, and then sat in the car, and I wrote in my pocketbook everything that happened, including the language. Stuart wrote in his pocketbook what he saw and heard, and once we'd written all of that down, we then drove back to the police station, and they had like a machine which is like a timestamp thing, so you slide the page into it and it gives it a little and it gives you the time and the date that's made, and you basically do that over your signature being the last thing in the entry. But that's what I did. Went back to work, went home, slept through the day, come back to work the next day, and as I came back to work, my inspector, John Amos, lovely bloke, called me into the office, and my inspector John Amos and the one that followed him, Mr. Ironside, both knew what I was like. They'd been out with me in the back of the car, and I didn't pull any sort of punches, They knew how I spoke to people in certain circumstances, and just to sort of go off off it a little bit. The time he was in the back of the car with me, I was driving down Brewer Street, and the car was coming towards me. Brewer Street's one way. So what had happened was he'd turned left into Brewer Street, I think from a little bit further up at St James's Street or wherever it was, and the no left turn sign was mullered. So he's obviously, you know, it's a mistake that people make. So he was driving the wrong way down a one-way street, which for him he's looking at 3 points and a fine for that. So I've basically steered the car over, so he's got no choice but to steer towards the curb and then stop because he's got no room to get through. And I sort of drew the car alongside him, and he's looked at me, and I've said to us, I've said to him, mate, one of us is going the wrong way and it ain't fucking me. And he went, what? I said, it's a one-way street. He said, oh no. And I said, just turn yourself around in front of me, I'll hold everybody behind. Just turn yourself around in front of me, you need to turn yourself around. So that's what he did. And when we were driving off, Mr. Amos said, it ain't fucking me. And I said, Governor, he's going to go away from this, okay? He could have had 3 points and a fine. You know, 3 points on his licence and a fine. But instead, he's had a cop just throw a fuck into him, get him to turn his car around, kept him safe while he did it, and he's gone off, and he'll probably talk about it with his mates in the pub. You never guess what happened to me today. But he's not gone away with a bad feeling, because, you know, yes, he was going the wrong way down a one-way street, but there was clearly the reason for it was because the road signs were fucked. It's not entirely his fault. So, you know, let's treat him fair, and he's had a fuck thrown into him rather than 3 points on his licence. And that was my kind of attitude towards it. So yeah, I get called into his office, and he's basically said, the complainant again, yeah, I fucking knew that was coming, didn't I? I knew that was coming. He said, yeah, apparently when you leant out the window and you shouted, move the cab, you black bastard. And it was that moment where it was like, what? And it really hadn't occurred to me that the cab driver was actually a black guy. Because I didn't really speak to him. I spoke to him at the off when I said, you know, stop your place to stop cabbie or something along those lines. But it never occurred to me that he was a black guy. I didn't speak to him again. It was the guy getting in the back of the cab that I had the conversations with. And it was that moment where you think to yourself, what the fuck? You know, this guy, for me, when you're making a complaint like that and you're suggesting that a cop has used a racist term, and you've got 2 female friends with you that are potentially witnesses to that, and when it comes to complaints, it's not beyond all reasonable doubt like it would be at a criminal trial. It's a lower level than that. Okay, it's just a lower level than that, and potentially that's me getting sacked. And it was like, fuck. And I've said to the governor, no, that's not how it went. And I've gave him my pocketbook. He's taken a photocopy of it and then attached it to the complaint, and it goes up to the people to investigate the complaints. So I've then gone along to it was Cannon Row, basically, which is where the New Scotland Yard is now, and that's where complaints were at the time. And the DCI that was investigating it was in making a phone call. His detective sergeant took me, and I had a Federation representative with me for the interview. Took us in, and he basically sat us down, left the file on the table, and basically said to us that the DCI has just made a phone call. We'll be in a 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll do the interview. So he's fucked off, and the case papers are there. So my Federation rep has basically spun the file round and opened it up, and I've literally shit a brick. I said, what are you doing? And he said, no, he wants us to read the papers. What? He said, if he didn't want us to read the papers, he wouldn't have left them in here. So basically, he's opened them up, flitted through. Obviously, got the statement from the cunt, mate, yeah, and if you do recognise yourself, you are a cunt. And they got a statement from him, and one of the girls made a statement along the same lines. But importantly, massively importantly, because I'd included the registration and the license plate number of the black taxi, they went and spoke to the taxi driver, and he gave a statement as well. And you know, bless him, he hand on heart, bless him, he basically said no. In his statement, it was along the lines of, no, the officer gave me some words of advice about where I stopped. It was a stupid place to stop. No time did he use that kind of language towards me, and it was that kind of thing. So the Federation rep said to me basically, yeah, we don't need to think about no comment, answer all their questions, which I did, and it got kicked out. My sort of stance after that was to the Federation, why am I not allowed to prosecute that guy? Because he has basically lied. When you make a statement, you sign a declaration at the top that it's the truth. He's basically lied, and his lie could have cost me my job, because if I hadn't written down the details of the cab driver, then it would have been my word against his. Balance of probabilities is the level they're working to, and if it's one of his girlfriends has made a statement as well, that's me fucked. I'm gone, because they're not going to listen to Stuart, because Stuart's my colleague, and regardless of the fact that Stuart made a statement, his statement's irrelevant, because they would look at it from the point of view he's just trying to fucking back me up. So yeah,